Today, what we are doing is we're diving into the biggest sin possible, going over onto Reddit and using some of the opinions of some of the fans on there to make entire narratives and make video commentaries about them. Yeah, I kind of feel guilty about this one, but at the same time, I feel like I have to give that disclaimer too. We're going to be talking about some guys here, some Chicago guys, some Buffalo guys, and I'll be very transparent and say at the beginning of the video, if at some point in 2035, in 2036, or in 2045, we look at these guys once again, I would probably bet some money that these guys are going to be great players. By the time 2035 comes to an end, I think the majority of NHL fans will look at these two guys and be like, yeah, they're great, fantastic players, and hopefully they're players who lived up to the hype that was bestowed upon them. Maybe by 2045 we can say, holistically, yeah, they had fantastic careers, they were jersey number retired eligible because they were that good, and maybe they have some Stanley Cups. These guys are probably going to be good. But for right now, on December 5th, 2024, I wanted to refer to some conversations about two of the most recent first overall picks and how some of these guys might actually be slacking behind. We're talking about the 2021 first overall pick, Owen Power, as well as the 2023 first overall pick, Connor Bedard. Now, the reason we are diving into both of these guys is because of some Reddit posts made on the Buffalo Sabres and the Blackhawks' respective subreddits. But before we dive into each of these, let's go over the tail of the tape with points. Owen Power is an interesting defenseman because right now he's making a whopping $8.3 million a year till 2031. This season, he's got 15 points in 25 games, on pace for 49 on a full season, which would be pretty good, I'd say, especially when you consider the fact that Power is only 22 years old. 50 points out of a guy who is in that age range. Sure, while the $8 million price tag might be a bit steep, you're paying for the potential, what Power could be, how many points he could be getting long term, and what kind of impact he could have on the game as a big, rangy, puck-moving defenseman who can just gallop down the ice with control of that biscuit. Meanwhile, if you go over to Connor Bedard, the 19-year-old has 19 points in 26 games played. He is on pace for 60 points over a full 82, which is kind of disappointing when you consider the fact that he had 61 points in only 68 games last year, winning the Calder Trophy in the process. Connor Bedard has suffered from a pretty bad set of splits here. He had gone weeks without scoring any goals, and a lot of people were really starting to harp on this guy for not really producing as much, and hey, I certainly put myself in that boat too, because Connor Bedard is one of my keepers on my main fantasy league, and he absolutely has not been pulling his weight. Not at all. And so, when you think about it, of course, Connor Bedard is 19 years old, he is the most talented player on the Chicago Blackhawks, and he is even the most productive guy on the team. Nobody else comes close to Connor Bedard in terms of points on Chicago. He has almost as many assists as the second-place point guy has points. It's just, when you think about what Blackhawks fans are saying, it plays very interestingly into the narrative as to where Bedard is in his career. In fact, let's do a little bit of a tease here, and go back to the first guy. Because if you want to talk about Connor Bedard, we can do that at the end of the video. I wanted to go over a commentary made on the Buffalo Sabres sub by Forever Changes BF Low. The core. Just my 2 cents here. Roughly half of the core players the Buffalo Sabres have built their team around are just simply not good enough. Clearly, Adams miscalculated when he gave long-term contracts to Cousins, Power, and Samuelsson. We have 4 core players that pull their own weight, in Tage, Tuck, Dahlin, although the penalties are a big problem, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. This squad was poorly put together. Again, this is just one fed-up old fan's opinion. Take it for what it's worth. And I wanted to dive into some of the replies of this commentary over here. Impossibles goes out there and says this. Right now, my short list is Tage Thompson, JJ Peterka, and Dahlin. My measurement of core is players that are untradeable. I love UPL and talk, but I could trade them right now for the right deal. When it comes to Owen Power, I hated the contract the moment the Buffalo Sabres gave it out. I remember last year when I said we gave him the contract too early when he was looking rough, and I got downvoted on here and told I don't know hockey or why he's good. Owen Power never warranted a top D contract, and I would rather have paid him even more when he actually deserved it than tied salary cap to a developing player. The dude plays way too soft for his size. This is a reply onto that same thread. Owen Power would definitely be a cheaper contract if the Buffalo Sabres bridged him until now. Either that or a better player. I can't believe so many people think he was some kind of prolific offensive threat when his stock was so inflated by being a number one defenseman that was wholly outperformed by Luke Hughes for the most stacked college forward group of the past 20 years. We picked a guy at one that we would never be able to play like a number one pick, because we have a player in his role that is superior in every capacity relevant to a pro hockey player. And this is where we have a really interesting set of divergence. There's a reply from J.M. McCasey. Anybody who thought that Owen Power was going to be some kind of prolific offensive threat was never really paying attention to the type of player he is, though. He was never billed as bringing prolific offense. He's a mobile, two-way defenseman and has always been. His offensive prowess at lower levels was a result of him just being better than his competition, not the style of game he played. Has he been everything I'd hope he'd be at this point? No, he hasn't, but I remember people calling to trade Dahlin 3 to 4 years in his career because they thought he was trash. This whole narrative around Power being terrible feels extremely similar. Like it or not, D-men take longer to develop than forwards, especially at Power's size and being a two-way player. You call out Luke Hughes as outperforming Power. I'm not sure if you mean college or the NHL, but Hughes is an offensive defenseman through and through. He should be expected to put up more points than Power, but he's also a massive defensive liability. Power has his lapses at times, but he's actually been better than Hughes defensively while playing more minutes and has actually put up more points so far this season despite New Jersey being the much better team. And here's actually where I will say this commenter is wrong. Luke Hughes has actually been one of the best defensive defensemen on the New Jersey Devils, backed up by some of the advanced analytics this year. And yeah, sorry, you just kind of don't know what you're talking about. Luke is literally a top 4 percentile NHL defenseman right now. It's ridiculous. Anyways, going away from the Owen Power conversation, I wanted to talk about this point made on the R Blackhawks subreddit about Connor Bedard, another first overall pick. Is it time for Bedard to be held accountable? He needs to play better defense if he can't produce. Bedard is our best offensive talent without a doubt, and Richardson has no offensive coaching mind of his own. Besides that, Bedard's defensive game has been awful. In our 3 games this month, he is -5. Constantly turns the puck over, looks lost in our own zone, and almost never backchecks. He plays around 20 minutes a game and is usually 2 to 3 minutes more than the next most offensive player's time on ice. Is it time to lessen his workload and use him more strategically? Most of Bedard's points are power play points, so it's starting to seem like he's becoming more of a liability at even strength. And this is where you talk about some of the angry replies. Imagine telling Joe Montana to hand the ball off better, or Jordan to rebound more, or Tyson to throw the jab more. Not saying Bedard is the next Wayne, but how the hell do you handcuff your offensive player by putting beer league bums on the ice with him and then get mad that he isn't producing? The kid's frustrated as hell. He has been an offensive weapon his whole life, and now he ain't even allowed to do that in this archaic system. Luke is kryptonite and needs to be fired ASAP. Take a look at this other reply here. From what I've seen, he just gets knocked off the puck a lot when he tries to be selfish. Other teams have him figured out. He's not a problem if 1 to 2 guys are glued to him. It means that someone else needs to punish them. I'm in agreement with everyone else here. Richardson has done some great defensive work with this team, but at this point, it's a detriment to the offense. And then there are a few other replies talking about how Bedard still literally leads the team in points, so he is the best point scorer. But I think a lot of the frustration in this post is mostly just due to expectation. People saw a sub-point per game year last year and they're like, yeah, he's going to do that again. Maybe even get a point per game this season. But things have been tough in Chicago, man. He has been definitely boxed out, and he's having difficulty scoring points at even strength. You can say he may need some sort of a mental coach or whatever, because it seems a lot like Connor Bedard is just kind of having a difficult time mentally. We had seen the comments that he made already about how he knows he can be better and he needs to do better. It's just kind of unfortunate now when you're thinking about Blackhawks fans turning their backs on Bedard, some even suggesting that his role on the team is questionable here. So I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Firstly, about the Owen Power conversation in Buffalo, how he may not be living up to his contract at the moment. And secondly, what are your thoughts on Connor Bedard potentially being in a rough spot too? And what do the Blackhawks need to change that? Hawks fans, Sabres fans, the comment section is your floor. Let me know in the comment section what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. And Bye.